John, how are you, shipmate?
I'm fine. How are you?
Yes, all good here, mate. All good. Just delighted, really, that through a mutual acquaintance, Frank King. Frank's going to be on the. We've already done our podcast, but he's going to be. We're going to be premiering Frank soon. That Frank put us in contact, and he actually said, "I've got a guy that I'm working with who was sank on a ship in the Falklands," and my radar went up immediately. As you know, I was on an aircraft carrier for a year, and you have to do all the training, obviously, in case you have to abandon ship. And it's kind of the thing every sailor doesn't want to happen, especially the poor old skipper. So it's absolutely delightful to speak to you, John. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
What part of the world are you in?
Newcastle, north of England. Newcastle upon Tyne. Yeah.
That's north of Exeter, I believe.
Yes, it is. Yes.
I don't know anywhere up there. I only know the southwest. But what made you join the Navy?
Well, actually, I think, to be honest, I was adopted as a child, and my blood parents were basically ex-RAF, and I think that was in the blood. And then, obviously, when I was brought up by my adopted parents, they were totally different. You know, I wanted the excitement. They were, to be honest, I mean, I love my mum and dad to bits, but they were very, I would say, well-to-do compared to what I was like. And I think it was just, I wanted the danger. And I decided basically the military was it. But I mean, I decided a lot when I was young, you know, possibly 11, 12. It was just, that's what I wanted. And that's what I did. I actually joined the Marines first, would you believe?
Bad luck.
Yeah. I was only 16. It was a junior Marine. And I'll be quite honest, I was too young. Training fine, everything fine. I just didn't like the people I was with. You could say I was posh. I wasn't, and then, you know, so there was lots of incidents going on. And I took the opportunity to leave the first chance I got, and I did. And I think if it had been a year later, it might have been a totally different thing, because a year later I joined the Navy and I just went at it. You know, it was, I joined up as a seaman. I knew I wanted to be a PTI. I joined up as a seaman. I did the 18 months, did my sea time, transferred to the PT branch. After I'd run field gun for the first time, I went to, I did the field gun for Portsmouth, became the PTI, went to HMS Daedalus to sort of like do my apprenticeship as a PTI, as it were, to learn everything that I've been taught, or to preach what I've been taught. And then in 82, I was given my first ship. I was really excited. I was only on it about a month and a half, and we sailed for the Falklands.
Wow. So I'm guessing HMS Daedalus, that's a shore base, right?
Yes, it's a shore based down in Portsmouth. That's where the Fleet Air on field gun, they train. But I was there for a good year as a PTI. One of the things I did do there was, many years ago, it was Prince Andrew was doing his helicopter, some part of his helicopter training at a small establishment. And I was basically, because I was the PTI, the bigwig, as it were, I had to look after quite a bit of the security of the week he was there.
You didn't teach him how not to sweat, John, did you?
No. In fact, I never saw him.
Okay.
You know, he was whisked in cars and whisked out by cars.
He had a much can we say, a much better public persona after coming back from the Falklands as a helicopter pilot hero than he's got at the moment, hasn't he?
Yes, certainly. Apparently he was, I don't know, I mean, he was a bit arrogant, I think, you know, whereas Prince Charles was more one of the boys. I know a couple of people who served under Prince Charles, and they said he was absolutely awesome, you know, great bloke. But, I mean, it was funny, a little incident, one of the blokes was telling me, you go in front of the captain's table for being a naughty boy, and obviously the captain decides what your punishment is, and the captain turned around and said, if you want to contest this decision, obviously you can take it higher. Unfortunately, you'll have to go and speak to my mum, the Queen. Yeah, so that, you know, he was comical as well.
I heard a couple of things about Charlie. That he does a lot of work because he's I don't all know the terminology, but he's the Duchy of Cornwall, isn't it? So spends a lot of time sort of down the southwest of England, or at least he used to, and for some reason he would end up at the pub at Princetown on Dartmoor called the Plume of Feathers. Obviously the Plume of Feathers is his crest, isn't it?
I'm not too sure, no.
But he'd be there, you know, with a group of young people or military or whoever it was, doing something to his estate, I'm guessing. And apparently he wasn't afraid to put his hand in his pocket and get all the beers in for everyone.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, I know my first ship I was on was HMS Salisbury, and we had an officer on there who was really well-to-do. You know, he had this huge Cadillac car. He came from, you know, a very high background, and we used to go up to Bethesda up in North Wales, and spend a lot of time up there, sort of just rambling in the hills. Obviously going to the pubs in the village, but it was a great time. Obviously that was around Llanrwst as well, because that's where I spent 6 months doing AT work as a PTI training, you know, doing all the outdoor activities that you've got to do. So I used to go up there quite a lot, but it was really good.
For people listening, if you're wondering what the field gun is, John and I are going to talk about that, and I can't wait because it's absolutely legendary in the British Armed Forces. And well, it certainly was back along. It seems to have taken a back seat, and John, I'll ask you to explain more of that. But so, how old were you when the Argentines invaded the Falklands? We never declared war on Argentina per se, but we did sail our task force to go and take the islands back.
Well, we were doing, obviously I was on the Coventry, and we were actually in Gibraltar on a big NATO exercise. And you're basically training everything. You know, every part of the ship has been tested to the limit. Obviously, as a PDI, I do special sea duty man, and I'm on the bridge, steering the ship most of the time. But the last week, we're actually in Gibraltar, and it's like my test as a PTI. So they arranged like an Olympiad where you've got every sport you could virtually think of, and I've got to organise the teams, get them to the right place and do that. Unfortunately, that was cut short, and we were told we were sailing south. We were sailing. Argentina had invaded the Falklands, and we all thought, great, we're going home soon, top of Scotland. We didn't realise it was South Atlantic, you know, so obviously, we set sail, and we didn't know how long it was going to take. I mean, it took us about 4 weeks, I think, but we you started off training little things, and they got bigger and bigger and bigger. You'd have damage control exercises where thunder flashes would be thrown into the mess, water flying everywhere. And then you'd have, obviously, your first aid exercises. And it just got harder and harder and harder. And it sort of dawns on you on the way down there, this is actually real, And then, because I was a PDI, a lot of people would come in, the younger ones would want to talk to me. And I didn't really, because I was a PDI, I was there to comfort them, to help them, keep them fit, morale, all of that. But when I was starting to struggle, the only person I could really go to was a captain, and he's preparing for war, so I couldn't knock on the captain cabin door and just walk in and say, "Excuse me, sir, can I sit down and have a chat? I don't feel right, But the younger ones who were there, some of the older ones, they would just come and talk to me, open up, tell about their worries, their girlfriends, their boyfriends, their girlfriends or whatever. And I struggled.
I bet there were a few boyfriends, John, weren't there?
Well, there might have been, but we didn't know back then because it wasn't the way it is now.
It was, it was all kept quiet, wasn't it?
Oh, yes, yeah. So obviously, it got harder and harder. And we heard the snippets, over the radio, what was going on. And we knew about the Falkland bombers on the 1st of May. And on the midnight on the 1st of May, we entered the total exclusion zone, or the 200-mile zone. And that was it. It started. And it was... Gosh. And to be honest, I remember that first day, all we could hear over the mic or the radio was Exocet. And I don't know if you know Chaff Charlie. It's like you fire up into the air loads and loads of tinsel, and it all spreads out, and it can, hopefully the Exocet will lock on to some of the tinsel, right, and take it away from the ship. It was a false alarm, but I actually knew adrenaline was brown then. Everybody was in the same boat. Your heart's racing, it was pumping, and because I was on the bridge, I'm sort of like trying to steer the ship and looking out the bridge, the sculls, and looking for this, and nothing happened, but that was reality of war.
Can we just backtrack a bit, John? I don't mean to steal your story. It's just for people listening that haven't been either in the armed forces, and certainly not on a warship like you and I have. There's an awful lot involved, obviously. So for a start, you're already on military maneuvers. So you weren't allowed to go back to the UK and say goodbye to your family, and give them a hug, and I might never see you again, which obviously some of your shipmates didn't come back. How did that affect morale?
Badly, because we've been away a while, and I think most ships who sail from the UK, the crew sailed with minimum kit. In other words, you had your naval kit, that was it. We had all sorts on our ship because we'd been away, and we were visiting other ports at certain parts. So a lot of personal gear was basically thrown over the side.
Wow. What was that, to make room for armaments and stuff?
Not so much armaments, but it's stuff that could float around, stuff that could block things.
Yeah.
TVs that were in the mess had to be taped up. The glass had to be covered with tape. Mirrors were taken down. Some people had golf clubs. They went over the side. All sorts of personal gear had to go over the side so that you had the minimum best stuff in your locker and nothing else.
Had you done the damage repair unit? You know, for people listening, it's when you go on a ship in the military, you have to do a sea training course and survival course.
Yeah.
You do it basically around Portsmouth and also HMS Raleigh, which is just outside Plymouth.
Yeah.
One of the drills you go through is a huge, it's part of a ship and it's on a hydraulic stilt. So it moves it up and down and it's getting filled with tons and tons of water almost instantaneously, with smoke going off, flashbangs. And you, as matlows or Marines, have to grab what they call a wedge, run to the hole and try and plug up the various different holes. And obviously it can be a huge hole. You have to take a big board, John, right?
Yeah.
Was that in service when you did your training?
Yeah, well, because I look at the Coventry because that was sort of the big one. She's based in Portsmouth, so there was a place, HMS Phoenix, in Port. I don't know if it's there anymore, but that was an MBCD sort of training school. And, you know, when the ships are in Portsmouth, they actually send groups of people from different departments, you know, to Phoenix for a week to do the training. But all ships companies go through it, and it's a regular thing. You know, so yes, I went on. I've been there a few times, but it is, you know, it does help you. Believe you me, mind you, for us down the Falklands, it didn't help.
And the other part of that training, did you do the jumping off the diving board and having to climb into a life raft?
In some ways, yes, because I was also a ship's diver. So yes, I used to go to HMS Vernon, and I can't remember the name of the place, but I used to jump off the top of the diving boards, you know, and do circuits with wetsuits on or dry bags on, you know, with the old ring round your neck, so you had to hold that. So I've done that a lot. So yes, but when you're at sea, excuse me, on a deployment, sometimes if it's Mediterranean, they'll stop the ship and have a hands to bathe, and you jump off the flight deck or you jump off the ship's side. So, you know, everybody's sort of been through that. When
we did hands to bathe, John, and we were some exotic place, they used to get one of the Marines to go and stand on the roof of the, what do you call it where the captain steers a ship?
Bridge. Roof of the bridge.
Bridge. God, I'm going to get crucified for forgetting that. But one of the Marines would stand on the roof of the bridge with an SLR, and if any sharks came, he'd have to shoot it, right? But but first you had to radio through to the bridge to get permission to shoot the shark, which is I can't imagine any Marine would see a shark coming to eat one of their shipmates.
That's funny. Get on the radio. That's funny, that, because I can actually remember my SLR number from when I joined up in 74. I can actually remember that. Obviously, I remember my ID number, but I can actually remember the number printed on the side of the SLR. You know, it's amazing.
Yeah, we were very lucky because when my troop went through training, they'd switched to the SA-80.
Yeah.
And of course, you hear from the old sweats all these legendary stories of how good the SLR was, especially in the Falklands, because the guys swore by this weapon. So when we went on ship, we were obviously, the ship still carried the SLR, so we got the best of both worlds. So you're on your way down south.
Yeah.
Was there a moment of levity as you crossed the equator and you could have a bit of fun, or?
No, it was just practice. You did have your sort of, you might have had, you know, Sunday afternoon where, apart from people on watch, doing what they do, I might have to do sport on the upper deck, you know, a bit of fun, bit of games, to keep them occupied, keep them happy, because everybody was all up in the air. You know, we didn't actually know if we were going to go to war or not. It was just, obviously they were going through like the paperwork stage of you know, Parliament, and deciding what to do. Would our threat of going down there pull them out or whatever? But it wasn't until we got to the Ascension Islands, and then we thought of, right, yeah, Vulcan bombers, you know, right, they're getting ready. Yeah, and I can't remember how long it took us from Ascension down the Falklands, but we knew the 1st of May the bombers were going in.
Yeah, and they did an amazing job, those Vulcans, didn't they?
Yeah, it's amazing how they got down there, because they had to use the Victor tankers. They had so many aircraft up there fueling, because it was like piggyback fueling.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that you would have no fuel in your tank to get back, but there was another aircraft coming out to fuel you so that you can go further. And then it was the same process on the way back. So that was an amazing, amazing feat.
Yeah. So again, for our friends at home, where the MOD decided they were going to have the first dig at the Argentinians, and they were going to bomb the airport in Stanley. So basically bombing our own airport, but to deny the Argentinians the use of it. And they put together these fleet of aging Vulcans that were just about to be scrapped, Vulcan bombers. The problem was, and they had to salvage lots of the parts, and they'd go down the scrap heap and get parts, because these things were on their way out of service. But flying down there, they obviously only carried enough fuel to get X hundred of miles before they needed refueling. They came up with this complicated equation where a whole fleet of the Vulcans and refueling planes flew down together, and it was just remarkable how they worked out this very clever system. But on the way back, the Vulcan crews had to decide, do we carry on and hope we get refueled, because we're on vapor now, and if we carry on, guys, we're probably going to ditch into the sea and hopefully swim ashore to Argentina, where we're going to be taken prisoner. And even with this in mind, they continued the mission, which is just, well, get emotional just thinking about it, really. So the crossing the equator, John, that's usually, for people who haven't done it before, it's a moment of fun, isn't it? You put them in a bath, and you
you've got King Neptune's there. He's got his, you know, it's just, you get dunked in the bath, and it's just a good laugh, good fun. But no, we didn't have anything like that this time.
No. And did you know, as the chief PTI, you're taking people for fizz, and you must be thinking, God, some of us might not be coming back.
Yeah. The further you got down, the more people were thinking about it. I was thinking about it. Everybody was thinking about it. The captain was thinking about it. You've got to talk about making wills. I mean, come on, a 19-year-old, 20-year-old kid thinking about making a will. You know, what, you know, so there was a lot of things going on down there.
Yeah.
And just the nearer you got, the more nervous you got, until actually the adrenaline sort of kicked in. You know, obviously 1st of May, the war started, and you really didn't have that much time to think about anything, because you could say from dawn to dusk you were at action stations, but when you were through the night, you had to think about, well, we need food, so you've got to sail away from the total exclusion zone, meet up with the RFAs, and you do the RAS, which is replenishment to sea. You're transferring fuel, ammunition, water, food, you know, toiletries, everything you need to keep you going for another few days. Obviously, then you go back into where your designated spot is, and then all of a sudden, 6 o'clock in the morning, action stations, and you've only been in bed 2 hours. and then you're up again all day. And it's,
John,
and then obviously,
sorry, just one second, mate. Yeah, John, the replenishment at sea, is it? I'm just trying to think how it was when I was on ship. I think sometimes, depending on where we were in the world, depended on what kind of food you got. Was that what you remember?
Yeah. Sort of, yes, in a way. But I think the replenishments at sea down south, I mean, we were running out of all sorts of food, you know, the basics, because we were so far away, you know, and the RFAs had to get the food to us, you know, and sometimes you could say weather wasn't suitable because it was heading towards just changing my thing a bit. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can. Try not to touch the thing because it makes a screeching noise down through the electric gizmo, but just yeah, I'm just trying to think how it was when we were on, because sometimes you could be somewhere in the world and you'd get like the local bacon or something, or the local beer, and just kind of, you wouldn't be expecting it. But I'm guessing you didn't get Argentinian bacon.
No. To be honest, I know food was scarce. I know a lot of the time it was like a pot mess, because obviously the chefs, they had to cook so many times for so many different shifts for so many different people, you know. A lot of the time it was big. Well, you'd have buddies brought up onto the bridge because we couldn't get off the bridge, you know, and stuff like that. But you've got to put your hands up to the chefs. You know, they were awesome, you know. Yeah. But no, it was, so you don't get much sleep at night, but then you're at action stations all day. We used to get the hands up from the Hermes because the company was a picket ship. So we were always miles ahead of the main group. And we were like, you could say, a sitting duck. But we could pick up, because of the radar we could pick up the aircraft as they left Argentina. And because it was quite a distance for them to fly, they had to go high level, save fuel. So we could pick them up and we could guide the Sea Harriers into them, or I think it was, we could lock on with a Sea Dart maybe 50 mile away, and we could follow it. And then when it gets into a certain range, we can just let leash and it's bye-bye aircraft. But I mean, I was on the bridge and the Sea Dart launches right in front of the bridge, and when it goes off, what a racket, you know. And for maybe 5, 6, 7 seconds after the launch, you just can't see anything for the smoke, the afterburners, or whatever you want to call it, that goes off. And then it's an amazing sight to watch, because you can just see it going away in the distance in like a spiral. It's going all over the place. And then all of a sudden, and it just looks like a match head. Then all of a sudden, the match head strikes and it just, bang, gone. Goodbye aircraft.
Yeah, they didn't they have to come in lower and lower, those pilots, in the end? Just
yes. Obviously, they had to come in lower when they got near the Falklands, or the Falklands Sound, or Balmally as we called it. Obviously, they had to come in low, away from, I think it was like the Rapier missiles and all of that. They used the cover of land. But because the company was like 45 miles, because the country was quite a distance off land, we had 360 radar everywhere. But the day we were sunk is a totally different kettle of fish.
Must have been, your heart must have stopped beating when you heard the what did they did you ever get like a brace? Obviously, you probably did when he got sunk, but prior to that, did it get that far?
There was a lot of we did get it, but it's not sort of brace. I could hear over the main sort of systems, because I could hear it. I was on the bridge. I could hear the officer, the watch talking to the captain in the ops room, and you could hear, you know, aircraft bearing, you know, 250, 5 miles, you know, and you could hear them talking to the missile systems, saying, you know, missile lock. So you can hear all that. And like, yes, tension starts to get you then, because you're thinking something's coming in here. I felt sorry for people like the engineers who were down in the dungeons, as it were, down in the engine rooms. They don't hear any of that. The only thing that they know, and the thing that used to really panic them, we had 4 engines on the Coventry. I think 2 were Tyne and 2 were Olympus. When the Olympus go on, you hear a whine, right? And it's Olympus is the ones that Boeing 747s had years ago, you know, the real big engines, and it's a big whine when they go on. And we could be on the Tyne engine, saving fuel, and then all of a sudden there's something coming in, it's getting very close, and I would be told full ahead, both Tyne. And it was like, oh, you know, so I would hammer the throttles full ahead, and you could just hear the change of noise. Well, for the engineers and people down below to hear that, it must be panic mode, because they don't know what's happening. They know something's in close. They don't know if it's behind, front, left, right, or port, starboard. So they must have had a lot of horrendous times waiting, thinking, you know, hitting the deck and waiting for something to happen, which didn't happen. But obviously, on the day, 25th of May, it did happen.
And can you tell us you know, in what were the 5 minutes building up to that, or the 2 minute? How did it happen?
Well, we knew it was the main beach landing, right? And we knew it was going to be a big day. We had a hard, big day, but we took out a few aircraft. We guided a lot of aircraft in, Harriers in. I think our little helicopter took out like a spy boat, whatever, and it was coming up sort of late in the afternoon, but we were only about 4 or 5 miles off the Falklands, which meant the whole of our radar could not cover the Falklands because it was long range. So the aircraft that came in, we picked up, we guided the Harriers, and then when the Argentinian aircraft went low, we lost them. And they must have made a specific beeline, or 3 or 4 of these aircraft. It was their job to take out us, because we were actually put where we were as a pawn to make them coming for us. So if we got hit, but it saved the beach landing. So we knew.
How many ships, John, had been sunk up until this point?
3 or 4. The Sheffield was first. The Ardent, Antelope, Glasgow, I think, was disabled. But we were actually, there was one Ardent, Antelope, I think, in the Falklands Sound itself. That was the one where you saw the huge explosion at night. It was in the dark, and you just saw, there was that. But we were the one really that was hit hard. And so, you'll find out why when I tell you.
Yeah, the point I'm getting to is that you guys must already have known that your shipmates have been sunk,
Yes.
And I'm guessing there was lots of
Friends.
a big loss of life.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
It's all very, very real, and I'm guessing extremely terrifying.
Yes, it is. Yeah, because you. I think when you're stuck on a ship, you are. I don't know if it's. I suppose it's. If you're on land, okay, the Marines on land, they or the paras, whatever, you get attacked, and I think it's sort of you can actually split up, and you can move away and hide, if it were, and then prepare yourself for your assault. But if you're on a ship, you can't get off that ship. And it doesn't matter where you are on that ship, right? If it gets hit, you're all in the same boat. It's not like one small section of a land force. Everybody else can move away and then regroup and counterattack, as it were. When the ship's hit, you know, it's all and on. So that is a frightening thing. And knowing that you've got to go into sub-zero waters is a frightening thing. So there's a big combination there. You know, yes, you might get off the ship, but you've still got to survive. You've still got to life rafts or whatever the scenario is, you know.
Yeah.
So it's and it's not like a war movie where you have the movies on the TV or the cinema, and you have this horrendous situation, but then you've always got your rescue party coming in. It's not like that. You don't know if you're going to get a rescue party. You don't know if you're going to get this, because it's real. You know, it's real blood and guts and fire, everything.
Were you wearing your anti-flash all the time, or was that only at action stations?
You have to wear it at action stations. When you're on defence watches, you will have it on, but you won't have it up, if you know what I mean, over. It's always in your little pouch next to you. Wherever you go, 24/7, it's on your body. When you go to action stations, it's automatic. It goes on and it stays on until you're stood down.
And your life preserver as well, is that, you always carry that with you?
Yes. You actually, even when you went to sleep, you'd still have it around your waist. You know, you'd have your anti-flash with you. You'd have it all. You were always there, you know, constantly by your side.
So for friends at home, the anti-flash is the hood, a bit like you see the racing drivers wear, that you pull over. It's made of fireproof material. You have gloves as well. Mm-hmm. Obviously, because the burns risk is as big as any other risk. And your life preserver is obviously what it is. The ones we had, they secured on a belt around your waist. And if you had to, jump overboard, you pulled them up around your head, and they had an automatic inflation device. Mm-hmm. The reason I'm asking John this is I want to know what state of readiness you were in, John. And if you've got time before you abandon ship, you put on
once only suit.
Once only survival suit.
Yeah, that is with you all the time as well. It's in a little pouch with everything. You've got everything together that you need.
And that's a survival suit, a bit like a dry suit, a very flimsy dry suit that is going to protect you once you've jumped overboard, just long enough for you to swim, say, to a life raft, or to get picked up by hopefully a chopper or something. Over to you, John. So what state of readiness were you in?
Right. I think it was about possibly 5 o'clock at night. We knew there was something coming up. Back to action stations, fully booted and spurred. The aircraft came in, and we followed them for a while, and then we lost them. we knew there was things going on in Bomali, because we could actually see explosions. You can see what's going on over there in the distance. And then all of a sudden we picked up aircraft on our radar. They'd basically gone through Falklands Sounds and the cover of the hills, came out the other side. We had a boat next beside us, which was the Glasgow. I think, no, Brilliant. The Brilliant was next to us. She was short range, so she would pick up short range stuff. The aircraft were picked up short range. We got a lock. The lock failed because we couldn't identify land and aircraft together. It wasn't long before we had all of our, it was a matter of seconds before we had all our upper deck small arms firing at the aircraft. They came in. We decided to hard a port to give them the least amount of target. Unfortunately, by doing that, the Glasgow, our partnership, had just locked with close range missiles. Because we did the harder port, we broke the lock. We went in between the aircraft and the missile. The missile couldn't go. Four aircraft came in, or four aircraft came in. I could actually see the aircraft through the bridge window. You could see the small arms fire going up, and the old-fashioned Orlecan that the Coventry had. You could literally see the whites of the eyes of the pilots. They were that low. One bomb was dropped, and I watched it drop, and it was just like slow motion. It just seemed like deadly silence. And I watched it, and I watched it hit the water, and then I watched it bounce, because I thought it was going to come straight into the bridge window, and it just went over the bridge. Then it landed the other side, and it caught the stern of our sister ship and went up and out the flight deck and took the helicopter off. Wow. Within seconds, there was another three bombs came in. One went below me into the computer room. One went midships and one went aft. They all exploded. And you could feel the ship starting to tilt already, but it was the silence. It was the silence of engines, not communications, not radio, not air conditioning, not. The ship was dead in matter of seconds, just total silence. Yes, you can hear the noise going on under, down below. You could feel the ship actually turning. I was on the port side. I could feel it going down. And then the smoke came up through the hatch on the bridge. And then obviously there's flames coming up, but the smoke is like a black acrid stink. It reminds me a bit of the dirty car fuel backfire. So that reminds me, if I ever hear it, sometimes you get these cars pass you at home and you can smell the smoke. That brings back memories constantly. I helped somebody on the port side with the Orlecan for possibly a minute, because obviously there was other aircraft flying around. The captain came up. He was in a total daze, didn't know what. He shouted to me and he said, he said, full steam ahead, both engines. We didn't have any engines. So he was totally dazed. Within minutes, the ship was 45 degrees. I basically had to climb up from the port to the starboard side through the bridge to get onto the starboard side to get to the life rafts. The life rafts were in the water. I actually ran down the ship's side, or slid into a life raft. There was people in the life raft already. I actually couldn't get in the life raft because there was too many people in, but some of my comrades in there were injured. You know, they had a lot of burn marks. There was more injuries than that. We had people trying to get in the life raft, but we couldn't let them in because there was too many people in. That haunts me because it was like they look at you and they say, well, clubs, why can't I get in? I'm frozen, you know, and I couldn't because we couldn't get them in. So they would swim off and try and get to another one. We had the helicopters above us, picking up people out of the water. The downdraft of the helicopter would push us into the ship's side, so we couldn't get away from the ship. So our life raft went around the bows of the ship and then came back down the port side. But the port side was the side that was going down. So it got to the stage where we were moving along the side of the ship with the downdraft of the helicopter. There was a missile on the launcher, a Sea Dart. The fire escape was open just in front of the 4-5 turrets at the front. There was flames coming out of that. Underneath that was the actual magazine for the Sea Darts. And then you've got the big radar, which is on the ship, which was just about ready to fall off. And we were sort of nearly underneath it, or getting closer and closer to it. By now, the comp is basically a full 45 degrees because the Sea Dart, which has got the 4 metal prongs on the front, actually pierced our life raft and started. The prongs had pierced the life raft, and it basically was going to take the life raft down, so we had to get out. So we basically had to bail out and get everybody out. And my once only suit was ripped. It was freezing cold. We all came out, and then there was still helicopters picking people up. There was boats from, I think it was the Broadsword. Oh, I can't remember the other ship there, but she'd sent their their boats over, picking up people out of the water. I had to swim quite a distance. I got into one of those small boats, but there was that many people trying to get in the boats, especially on one side. It was like going to capsize a boat. But we managed to do that, and then we were taken to the sister ship. I just can't remember the name now. And we had to climb up the ropes at the side of the ship, and then we were taken into the wardroom. And if I'm correct, we were given a large whiskey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's all of the order in at this stage in the proceedings.
All of that. So from actually the Coventry exploding, she was actually 180 degrees, and you could see the propellers in 21 minutes. So that is not a long time.
And as your life raft sank, I'm guessing there were people couldn't get out. I mean, if they were injured.
We managed to get everybody out, but I can't remember, exactly how many were in there. Nobody went down with it, as far as I know, because that would have been talked about, at a later date. But I presume everybody got out. But for me, one of the biggest things is it's just the look on people's faces when they're like, you can't help them, you can't pull them in. And it's like, why can't you let me in? I'm freezing, I'm cold, I'm injured. And it's just like a horror face. you know. And I used to dream about that a lot. Until I had therapy, when I could actually, you know, open up and talk about it. That used to haunt me, that.
How many were in your ship's company?
I think it was about 250, 260. 19 comrades died, and there was, I think it was 30, 40 injured. If I'm correct, 1 or 2 committed suicide years later. But I can't, you know, I can't guarantee that. That's just sort of things I've heard on Facebook, you know, or comments made.
John, I'm sure you'll agree with me, these government statistics, they don't take into account the civilians that die. They don't take into account the people that drink themselves to death or
Well, I'm just turning my phone off because that was my son ringing.
Yeah, these statistics don't count the people, you know, that take drug overdoses, that their lives are cut short through the trauma. And of course, you know, the suicide is, they always say far more people commit suicide after a conflict than die during the conflict. And this is half our battle at the moment. You know, some of these brave groups like Veterans Against Suicide that are just petitioning the government constantly to get more support.
I mean, I remember, I mean, after I was diagnosed, I remember I had a flashback. I was in my local rugby club, I had a flashback. And a few days later, I was sort of thinking, these people thought I was a nutter. I was crazy, you know, because I'd lost it, absolutely lost it. And I actually went to my local park with my iPad and I sat there and I did a 9-minute video. And I just sort of introduced myself. I mentioned mental health. I opened up and said, and I basically told them a 9-minute story of my life. It wasn't as explicit as what I've been telling you, but I think within 4 or 5 days, I'd had 75,000 hits.
Gosh.
Some of the comments I'd had, it was like, wow, how can somebody open up like that and talk about mental health? You know, and that was that's what sort of started me thinking about things, because it's like 75,000. A lot of people would see me, you know, on that Facebook page, and they would look at my face and you would just move on. But no, they stopped and they listened to it. I would like to know how many people who actually listen to it are suffering in silence. Because, you know, if you don't, I think if you don't suffer from any mental health issues, you wouldn't watch something on Facebook, right, about mental health. No, exactly.
Let's come on and talk about that, this very valuable subject, John. But I want to go back to the point you're in. So you're on the let's call it the rescue ship. You're in their mess, and they've given you a whiskey.
Yeah.
Are people in shock? Is there blood everywhere? How's it?
There isn't blood everywhere. I think because the ones who were injured are being looked at, right? You're in the mess, but the first thing they did, obviously, it was, I think it was the wardroom. They gave us a whiskey, or might have been a tot of rum. And the first thing they're doing is trying to get you, you know, warm, because you were freezing. Nobody had any clothes. We were soaking wet. I was given 2 left feet, a pair of trainers of somebody. I had, I don't know what we call them, I think it was number 8s back then. The blue, sort of like denim shirt, denim trousers that you wear as you know, for working gear. A pair of trousers that were too big. I had a shirt that was too big, half the buttons missing. We had no clothes, we had nothing. There was people there trying to talk to you, trying to help, you know, speak to you, but it's like you don't want to speak. You sit there in total shock, in total awe, and you think, trying to go through what's happened through your mind. You're in a total different planet, a different world, and obviously there's still got things going on. There's people being picked up out of the water. You've still got the landing craft going into St. Carlos Bay. The war's still going on, but for us it was over, and it was like. But I do remember we were actually taken into the Falklands Sound at night and transferred to an RFA. And we all went up in sort of like the main galley up there. People coming in at different times from different ships, different helicopters. And it's just total silence. They've got the radio on, and it was the World Service. And we all remember, and we will remember it to this day. It's like you get the music that starts the World Service, and the first thing that comes on is HMS Coventry has been hit down the Falklands War, right? Bombed instantly, capsized, casualties are high.
How soon did you start realizing then that you'd lost shipmates, and was it like really personal? Did you think, oh my God, this is a friend, an oppo of mine?
It took a long time to realize, who hadn't made it, because people have been picked up and taken to different ships. So we were all now starting to congregate on the RFA in the Falkland Sounds. And you'd see people coming in. You would hear little stories about certain things. I mean, I know, God rest him, my sports officer was in the computer room when the bomb went off. He didn't come out. Well, unfortunately, he came out, but he didn't. He died, basically. He died in the explosion. I knew that, but then it's still, honestly, it is a blur. And we were taken from there on another RFA to South Georgia. And that's when things started to realise, because they were still trying to find people, record who was available, because I think some of the lads were actually on the hospital ship down there in a serious way. So that's when everything started to come together, and on the RFA on the way to South Georgia. But on the way to South Georgia, they had action stations, and everybody freaked, because it was like, not again, because the RFA is so inside the ship is so open with big, because they're full of containers. They're the ones that supply your food, your ammunition. So it's like, and you've got no way of defending yourself. You don't know actually how to get around the ship properly, because you don't know it like the back of your hand. So it was like a big panic. As it happened, everything was fine. And then we were taken, once we got to South Georgia, we were put on the Kiwi-2. And then that was our slow, that must have been a week or so later. And I still hadn't been able to contact my mum and dad. They didn't know if I was alive. They didn't know if I was dead. They didn't know, was I injured? And it was the same for everybody. And it wasn't for a couple of weeks before I actually was able to I don't know how they do it back then. I think it was you were booked in for a satellite call home. And that was the first time I spoke to my parents after about 2 weeks. And they didn't know, what was happening with me. Either way, nobody could get in touch with the MOD, because they were just flooded with phone calls, and it was always engaged or whatever. But it was actually, I had a girlfriend at the time, or an ex-girlfriend who was in the Wrens down there, and she actually found out that I was alive, and she actually phoned up my mum and just said, you know, John's alive, everything's okay, right? If you need anything, or if I can do anything to help, you know. So, but it was still 4 or 5 days after that before I could contact my mum. So,
oh, unbelievable. The pain they must have gone through.
mm-hmm, yeah.
Oh,
I mean, it was, you know, when we did get back to Southampton, I was actually, when we docked, I was actually second off the ship, right? And I found my mum and dad, and the first thing my dad said to me, can I hug you? Are you okay? Wait, are you hurting anywhere? And he wouldn't, because he didn't want to shake my hand. He just wanted to know I was okay. But we had a hug, bit of a cry. You know, my mum and dad, my sister was there as well. And that was a really, really emotional moment.
I'm trying to hold it together here, John. It's which ship did you come back on in the end?
QE2.
Oh, you came back on.
Yeah, the QE2 took the troops down there, and then she anchored up the Falklands, South Georgia, and she stayed there. And there was the Coventry, the Ardent, I think it was the Antelope. All the survivors of those 3 ships were put on the QE2, and we sailed back. We didn't get back. I think it was June. I think it was June we got back. It might have been July. It'd probably be June. We got back in June.
Did you have to wait until the conflict had finished, or
no? Once the three ships companies had got onto the QE2, she sailed.
So for our foreign friends listening who might not be familiar with the terminology, the QE2 was a cruise ship named after Queen Elizabeth. And so these were civilians that, I don't know if volunteer is the right word, because they probably didn't have much choice, but they had to sail to the Falklands as civilians to support the military effort. And I should give a shout out here to my cousin Brian, who was the chief steward on the QE2. And I said to him the other day, he's living in the Caribbean now. We chatted the other day on the internet, and I said to him, so were you like well outside the exclusion zone? And he's like, no, we were in there with everybody else. So just incredible. Gosh, yes. Do you think a lot of lessons were learned by the Navy with respect to the casualties thing and the reporting? And
I mean, I think a lot of lessons were learned. I mean, you look at the Coventry. You know, she wasn't designed for that type of war, right? And she was. It was all computers, and I mean, I look at it and I think, well, you take out the computer room, you've taken out the whole ship. So it's like, maybe you should have a backup computer room. You know, just like you've got your main steering, and then you've got secondary steering, and then you've got a backup steering, which is actually in the tiller flat, which is pumps, hand pumps. It might take a long time to turn the ship round, but you can steer it if the bridge is taken out. Whereas you take the computer room out, the whole ship's out. That's it.
Yeah.
yes, they probably learned a lot of lessons. But obviously, I wasn't in the Navy. I was only in the Navy for 2 years after that, and then I was out. So I mean, I watch programs at the minute on the telly about the new carrier being commissioned and built, and I can't remember the name of it now. Anyway, and it's totally different. Absolutely totally different to when we were there. So, but yes, they probably learned some, good lessons. Everybody would have. So,
when you were sailing back, John, were there sort of memorials services going on by the Padre or anything?
No, we had every morning you would have you would muster in the cinema, and all three you'd say prayers. All three captains would say their own bit, obviously because you've got 3 crews in there, or 6 companies, 3 captains, 3 ship companies. You are, on occasions, you would have your own personal ship's company meeting. I had to organise or try and organise things for them to do during the day. Sports. Because there was 2 PTIs on there. One of the PTIs didn't make it. God rest him. There was me and another one, and we did like an orienteering competition on the whole ship. Finding places. We would hide things underneath certain carpets, or do this, or different things for them to find. We did. We organised a darts competition. They organised a Sod's Opera on the QE2. So there was, lots to do. But obviously, some people would go sunbathing. I remember there was always beer in the bath, full of cold water. They'd always ship's company would put a case of beer in the bath for you. I remember that, but it was a miserable journey back. It was a miserable journey back.
So did the civilian company on the QE2, how were they around you guys? Because they must have obviously sensed that you were all in shock.
They couldn't have done any more. They were absolutely awesome. They really, really looked after you. And they were great. There was never any conflicts. They sort of, if you were down it and didn't want to speak, they wouldn't speak to you. It was as if they knew they'd been prepped beforehand about how to deal with us, what to say to us, how to keep us happy, to help us. They were good. I mean, it's a long time ago, 1982 now. So a lot, I can't remember everything, but no, they were brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
And how was it if you had 3 captains on board, they've all lost their ships. Must have been obviously not just the worst or most challenging moment in their careers, but probably amongst the worst moments in their life, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it will be. I mean, I didn't really get the chance to speak to the other captains, but our captain, David Hartdyke, I met him a couple of occasions at reunions, and it's devastating, absolutely devastating. But there's, quite a few interviews with our captain on YouTube. I've watched them a few times. He actually opens up, and, what it's like, the inside, his story, stuff like that. So that some of them are a really good watch. But it's amazing because I'll always remember our captain, and I will do for years, because he's got a daughter, right? And her daughter is Marinda Hart, the comedian.
My gosh.
Yeah. So every time I see her on the telly, you know, it reminds me of a dad.
Mm.
You know, and they look so alike.
It must have been so difficult for those captains to be walking around amongst the crew.
Yes.
I'm not sure people listening will understand what I'm getting at, but there's so much tradition in the Navy. In fact, yeah, it runs through all of your blood when you're in there, and there's certain things that it's almost like they're set in stone. And yeah, again, like I say, for a captain to lose his shit and to know that people went down on it, and of course this goes without saying, this is not a blame thing at all. I'm feeling for the captain here, you know. You must have seen this on their faces.
You can see the strain on their faces. You can see the anguish they're going through. You can sense it. But they are so proud. You know, they hide it very well. You don't know really what goes on in the back of their mind, you know, what they're doing, because they stand up. They are the captain. They have to do that. You know, it wouldn't surprise me, you know, in the evenings when they went back to their own cabin on the QE2, they had a good cry. It wouldn't surprise me, but they won't show it because they are the captain. You know,
of course, once they get back to England, the UK, should I say, you know, they got all the boards of inquiry and stuff to go through, haven't they? And
yes,
you know, so it's not, it's no way over yet, and that's got to relive all these awful memories. Was it hard for you, John? I mean, you're meeting your parents there. Did you say Southampton?
Yes, yeah.
Sorry, it's not really a fair question. I didn't mean.
No, it's okay. That's okay.
Just it. You know, it's like your shipmates haven't come home. You know, it's not fair on any of you, is it?
No, I mean you arrive at QE2. I mean, it was a tremendous occasion, you know, and it was like a sense of reality again. I mean, you still had to go home, and you had to face the music. You know, yes, I was going to go back to Newcastle. There was a street party arranged for me, which I didn't know about, but it was so nice to see my friends again. But you could see them all standing back thinking, are you all right? Is there something wrong with them? You know, and they didn't know what to say. They didn't know how to react. And that is something which I think I've learned over the years, and it with mental health. And I made a comment on an interview I had when I was on the STS Lord Nelson, but that's another story. And I said basically that military people will actually open up to military people because you trust them, right? You work together, you live together, you will bend over backwards for each other, right? You will stick up for that person. But in Civvy Street, I've over sort of my time as a civvy is, I can't speak out to people. I don't trust them because you'll get shit on from a great height. You know, you can be best of mates, but when something goes wrong and you're working, it's like, well, it's not me. Whereas in the military, you will back each other up. So that was something that I said, and I'll still stick by that today, unless I've met somebody who I trust. It's just really, really hard to talk about it. So when you go back to that with the street party, it was very strange. I mean, it was great to see them all, and it was nice for the amount of people that were there. But you felt as if they were all standing back still because they weren't sure how I was. You know, is he mentally all right? Is he okay? You know, you just didn't know. So
it's a funny thing, John, you know, like in all my life, right? In all my life, never, ever, not even on one occasion. There was one occasion. Have any of my civilian friends ever asked me anything about all my time in the military? You know,
yeah. Uh-huh.
Before I joined the military, there was a guy called Martin who joined Lympstone, right? And he'd got injured and had to leave, right? But he was at my house once. And once I heard him say I was in the Marines or Marines training, I'm like, what's that like then? How, you know, why did you join? What made you want to join? And I couldn't ask him enough questions, right? Nobody, including my family, any of my friends, has ever even asked me, like, what's it like in Norway? What's it like to put a Bergen on your back and have a machine gun?
Uh-huh.
You know, what's it like to patrol the streets of Northern Ireland? And
Uh-huh.
it just, I don't know why. I don't know why there's that disconnect there. I don't know if it's that they're not interested, or whether life is just takes up all our minds, you know, our own lives, or whether they feel a bit, you know, backwards in coming forward. So for people coming back from the Falklands, I can picture a little bit how difficult it must have been. And then, of course, you had that, there was someone in one of these Falklands documentaries, they said, I think they said they got back to Portsmouth and they were walking along the Hard, you know, along the harbour. And
yeah,
they said everyone's like out buying ice creams and, you know, walking their dog and sunbathing. And he just wanted to go up and shake them and say, do you not know what our armed forces have just been through? They've just fought a war on your behalf. And none of you seem to not. I mean, did not a criticism again. I'm just saying that it must have been hard, John.
They just don't know what it's like to go to war. I mean, I didn't expect to go to war, to be honest. I joined the Navy to be a PDI, travel the world, have a bit of fun, enjoy myself. You don't expect to go to war, but obviously it happened. And I think that was a big eye-opener for lots and lots of people. Lots of people.
How long was it before you found out you were suffering with trauma, and how did that come about?
I think when I left the Navy, there was something going on then, because I think I started to isolate myself in my last few months before I got out. I would prefer to work on my own. I felt easier that way. And then when I did get out, I went commercial diving. And when you go commercial diving, I think it's very much like being in a mob. Most of the people I work with are ex-military. And it's the way you work, the shift patterns you work. And then I was doing 3 months on, month off. So when I get the month off, I would go home. Everybody would want to know what I've been doing, where I've been. And then I would go away again. I would train. I would do my 12-hour shift. I would go training in the evenings, or most nights I would train some sort of exercises. And I think it was the adrenaline. But when I came home, I still felt a bit different. I don't know. And then I just seemed to start going downhill slowly. And when I actually finished diving, that's when it started to hit. I started having the flashbacks, the nightmares, alcohol, lots of alcohol. I was, for a while, I was treated for depression, anxiety. Nothing ever came of it. I had CBT, nothing ever came of it. And then it came a stage whereby I wanted to take my own life. That was basically alcohol and medication induced. I saw a doctor in hospital and he went, whoa, this could be PTSD. I was looked at and I was diagnosed with PTSD. But all the therapy I had before that for CBT, when I was, you know, sort of like depression, anxiety, not once did they go back to my military days. They didn't go that far back. And then it was 2016 that I was actually diagnosed with PTSD. So I'd gone through all those years, which I called living in my black hole, because maybe I was macho, maybe I was, can't happen to me. But I was going down and down and down. I mean, I got married not long after I started diving. I got, you know, a beautiful wife. I've got 3 kids. You know, the shit I must have put them through, you know, for quite a few years. And I think, but because I was away, you don't see it as much.
Yeah.
And then when I come home, I'm on the high because I'm come home. And I remember my wife, Christine, she would sort of try and change things around when I was at home to make it easier for me. And then obviously I would go away again. But when I finished the diving, I think that's when it seriously started to go. That's when the nightmares, all the problems I started to have. And then I was diagnosed. I went straight up to Scotland within 4 months, 5 months, and I had the trauma treatment.
How does that take place? What do they do there, John?
Basically, it was through combat stress. I think it was 27 one-hour sessions over 6 weeks. It took a long time for me to start to open up, but my psychologist was lovely. When you're not doing your sessions, you're doing all sorts of other activities. They explain to you, you know, the PTSD, the well-being. You do a lot of art, you do a lot of photography to try and express your feelings, and then you will discuss it all with each other. You know, trying to find things that make you understand or make you realize the signs and the symptoms, so that you've got coping strategies. So when you feel things going on, you know how to cope. You think, oh, right. One of the big ones I had was every time I had a trauma session, I used to take cut grass in a little bag into my session. And that was my grounding tool, because cut grass was something I always loved the smell of when I came back from diving, with being in the Middle East. So when I was getting upset or when I was getting a bit agitated, she would just tell me, smell your grass, you know, have a sniff of your grass, you know, and it would just like calm me down and bring me down. And then for a while, I used to have a little rugby ball, a little small plastic rugby ball, really soft one, squishy one. I used to keep it in my pocket, and I just used to play with that in my hand. You know, just it was a calming mechanism for me. It would, you know, soothe me down. But obviously, you're just looking at different ways to recognise things, different ways to know what your limits are. But it was really good. I mean, it was good. It helped me with the trauma work, especially because I actually opened up. I don't feel ashamed about some of the stuff that I had to do, because they make you look at it in a different way. One of the big ones for me was I did that REMDR, rapid eye movement. And we paused at a scenario where I was not letting people into the ship, and I mentioned about pushing them away. And it's like, I felt really bad about it, you know, as if I was killing my mates, and that haunted me. But my therapist stopped it there, and she turned it round and sort of said, well, actually, you did what you had to do because you actually saved the 25, 30 people in the life raft. So you've actually saved 25 lives, not pushed away 2 or 3 people. You've actually saved. And the way she did it sort of made me realize that, you know, yes, you know, it's quite right. Yes, I had to do, but I had to do what I had to do to save the bigger picture.
Yeah.
So in effect, that sort of bad scenario has been turned in my brain so that I can accept it. And basically it's now put to sleep.
Mm-hmm. Sounds a bit like cognitive behavioural therapy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And how old were you in the Falklands, John?
Oh, right. 57 or 23.
So it's no age at all, is it, really? I mean...
20, no, sorry, 24, 25, 20, yeah, 24, about 24.
Yeah. I didn't grow up until I was 60, and I'm only 50. I think you shouldn't be allowed to join the military until you're at least 40, and by that time, there ain't no way you're going to join.
No.
Well, some people would for various reasons, but I think a lot of people were like, no, let's go the peaceful route. Let's talk about something a bit more fun now, John. Field gun.
Right.
How did that actually originate? Because I've heard the kind of rumours that you hear when you're in the mob.
It originated from the Boer War. Right. HMS Powerful the sailors from HMS Powerful took these big field guns to the Battle of Ladysmith, right? And they had to take them over by land. But they broke. The wheels broke. So they had to dismantle them, manhandle them, and get them put back together for the Boer War to fire at the Battle of Ladysmith. And that's where it originated from. It came back to the UK, and basically they used to parade these guns, you know, at ceremonies, and then it was built into a small competition, and it just escalated, and you then have the field gun competition at the Royal Tournament at Earls Court. But over the years, it's got faster and faster. The drill's getting changed slightly, and it's an awesome event.
Yes.
Yeah.
For people who haven't seen it, or I'm guessing it's probably people too young to know it. It became a tournament where they would reenact this famous event, carrying the field gun, and they would do it on an assault course. And you'd have various teams from all around the Royal Navy who'd take part, and the final would be at the Royal Tournament. Is that right, John?
Yeah, what we had was you had Devonport, Portsmouth, and the Fleet Air Arm field gun crews, 3 main ports. You were trained for 6 months. You would go to Earls Court, and I think you have 16 runs each, 8 against the other 2. You get 2 points for a win, 1 point for a loss, and no points if you're disqualified. They have 4 trophies. One was the fastest time, one was for the best B crew, one was for the least amount of penalty points, because if you do things wrong, you'll get penalised points. And then the other one was the Ultramarathons Cup, which was the team with the most number of wins or points over the whole competition. Well, in '84, I ran, obviously for Portsmouth. We did what was known as, it was 2 minutes 40.6. It was the world record, and it stood for 15 years.
Wow.
And it was broken by Devonport, 1999, the last Royal tournament, the last run. They beat it by about 0.2 of a second.
Bastards.
Yes.
Is it, again, I just want to paint the picture for our friends at home. So you've got this tournament, you've got these men and they are all huge. We're talking, you know, upwards 6'2", 3, 4, built like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Well, you actually can have your 6'2", 6'3", 6'4". However, you've then got things like the first swing who goes over the chasm on the rope. He could be 5'7", 5'8", 5'6". You know, you've got your big brutes on the gun because they're lifting heavy stuff, and then you've got smaller people who are doing different stuff. You've all sorts of different sizes, but you're all extremely fit. You are very muscular, and so you have a quite a combination of people. Quite a combination.
And you're dressed in your best, I don't know what you call it, but the whites, and it looks, it's impressive.
You have your white top on. You have your basically your number one trousers on. They're not your number ones, but they are very similar. You have the white gaiters on. Obviously, that's protect your lower part of your feet, and it looks awesome. Looks awesome.
And there used to be these kind of I was going to say urban legends, but they're probably not urban myths, but they're probably not myths because I've no doubt they're true. That people would lose their fingers and get broken arms and this kind of thing.
If you can't see it, mangoes at the end. No, it doesn't matter. No, I had 2 of my fingers crushed.
Wow. Ow.
Between the gun barrel and the wheel.
Yeah, not nice.
No.
And the other thing I heard, John, was I'm guessing. Well, I'll say what I heard. I heard that they wouldn't let the Marines have a team, but I would say that's probably more because they weren't involved in the actual original story in the Boer War, as opposed to they were too fit and they'd always win it.
I honestly do not know the real story of that, but I would probably say they wouldn't let them in it because it was sailors who took the guns over, and it's sailors who were doing it.
Yeah, that's what.
Otherwise, you could have Marines doing it, Army doing it, RAF doing it, but it was sailors first and foremost.
There's actually a field gun in I don't want to say where I live, although most people know, but there's a field gun in my local park.
Is there?
Yeah. Pointing out at a certain dockyard, shall we say.
Yeah.
Diving, commercial diving.
Yes.
I've always wanted to have a commercial diver on the podcast, John, because that's just something again that's well, it fascinates me. How did you get from? I mean, you did your ship's diving course in the Navy, you said.
Yeah, I did the ship's diver in the Navy. That was purely. I mean, I saw the divers, working, and I thought, oh, that appeals to me. I want that. I like that. So I did the course. It was a little bit extra money. I got a buzz out of doing it. I enjoyed it. But when I left the Navy, I was going to go into sport and recreation. But I decided against it because my qualifications in the Navy are not recognised in the UK. As a civvy. So I just phoned up Fort William, found a course. It was called a 3-to-1 conversion. I think I went within a week. I went up to Scotland and I did the conversion course, and then that was it. Started diving. I mean, I wasn't saturation diving; it was just air diving. I did use gas at some points, but it wasn't the really deep, living in a decompression chamber or sock chamber. I might have done the gunshot diving if I hadn't got married. It was just basically money.
What kind of jobs were you doing then? Were you? I'm guessing you were fixing lots of stuff.
I would do construction work. I did quite a bit of inspection work, inspecting the legs on the jackets, all sorts of. I think, what was it called? I can't remember now what the actual ticket I had. C-SRIP 31U. It was an inspection ticket. I used to take videos and record things. I also do a lot of construction work, putting stuff in, changing pipelines, all sorts, but all basically on the rigs. All sorts of stuff. When I was in West Africa, we did a lot of work on, they had sort of subsea wells, and we had to go down and do a lot of inspection work on them, change a lot of stuff. But it was a lot of it was inspection work. Some of it was construction. But it's that long ago now. It's time to remember what we were doing, because it's probably the same job, but you do it that many times on different structures, but each time it's totally different because it's a different structure.
Have you have you ever heard of the book? It's called Diver by a guy called Tony Groom.
Tony Groom and I joined the Royal Navy together.
I thought you might know him.
Yeah, we joined the Navy together at HMS Raleigh in 1975. We were on the same class, right? Everything. And I've been in touch with him on a few occasions, and I've actually got his book here in the house.
Yeah, it's literally up there on my shelf. I can see it now. Good book, tell him. Very good book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Small world.
Yes, it is. There's probably a few shipmates that we both know. The only trouble is my memory is just not what it used to be. I can't even remember the terminology, like what we used to call, like, not the boss of the ship, if you know what I mean. Maybe I'll speak to you afterwards about that. It won't mean anything to anybody listening. But when I was in Norway, you had commercial divers up there, and they would just spend their days diving for, I think it was scallops.
Yes, scallops.
Yeah, there was a lot of money in it.
Yeah.
Have you ever done that?
No. I mean, I've been spearfishing before. Segalis. We used to put big nets on the bottom on a certain day. We used to put big nets at the bottom of a jacket, and you used to water jet the legs, and all the clams and everything used to fall into the net. Then we used to pull the net up, and then we give it to the Malaysian cooks on board, and they would cook us like a seafood platter in the evening. Just stuff like that. Crayfish, segalis, red snapper, grouper, just spearfishing.
Gosh. What's the favourite? What's your favourite country you've been, John? Other than this great one, obviously.
Oh, it's got to be America.
You enjoyed it there, yeah?
Yeah, it was on the Hermes because it was a decommissioning voyage. So we went all the way down from New York, Mayport, all the way down to Florida, just different stops on the way. You know, it was really, really good. Because you'd get weekends away. So I remember going, I can't remember exactly where we were, it might be Mayport. We got the weekend off. We jumped in a hired car and we went down to Disney World, you know, came back. It was just awesome. It was a relaxing, friendly sort of decommissioning voyage.
Yeah, and it's an eye-opener going to the States for the first time. In fact, actually, when I was on ship, it was my second time in the States. The first time I went on a holiday to New York. Everything is so huge there and so just so different. You can't really explain it, just different. But yeah, I have a great time in the States. Wonderful people as well. Very very kind people in America. Well, and I wanted to ask you about your fan dance.
Right.
How old were you when you did that, John?
I was 61 years old. I did it in 5 hours, 41 seconds. I had the 25, because I was classed as over 40s. I was classed as a master. So I had the 25-pound burger plus water plus food. I think in total, I was about 35 pounds. Obviously, it was decreasing as the water went, as I went. But I did it. It was 5 hours 41. Apparently, I was told in the bowl itself it was 40 degrees.
My gosh.
Yeah. So
that's hot.
Yeah.
No wonder those 3 lads died of heat exhaustion.
I mean, I was told it was 40. Whether or not it was 40, I don't know. But I was actually told, I was in Brecon. Obviously, we stayed the night there, 2 nights there. Obviously, the night before and the night after. The night we'd finished, I was in one of the pubs in there, and I was talking to some of the people there, and they said, apparently it was 40 degrees in that bowl today.
Yeah, I can't believe it. So does that mean you're in the SAS now?
No, I didn't do it in 3.5 hours or whatever time it took. So no, and I wasn't carrying a weapon.
Well,
no,
you're obviously slacking a bit, mate.
But no, it was awesome. Ken Jones, the bloke who dished out the badges afterwards, you know, he just turned around and said, you know, for people to do that, you know, as a civvy, I know you're Navy, but he just said, as a 61-year-old, he said, you know, I'm impressed, you know, well done, you know. So I've still got that. I've still got the badge in my pocket. I keep it in my wallet.
Yeah, I was fortunate to have Jay on the program. Jay runs a company called the SF Experience, and they do this thing you're talking about. They basically give civilians the chance to do all the kind of SAS stuff, and yeah, it sounds fascinating. I want him to get me on a few on a few of his programs. John, listen, it's been emotional for a start. My God, that's just listening to your story. What all you guys, and I'm guessing the girls on the civilian liners had to go through when you were down there. No, it's beyond belief, and I'm glad that you've got to grips with the trauma, because our message to people out there, if they're suffering, if they're hitting the booze, if they're depressed, if they don't know why life is wrong, we got to tell them to reach out, John, haven't we?
Yeah. I mean, I just, a lot of things come out of it. It's okay to talk. You don't have to be, you don't have to isolate yourself, because there are people out there who will listen, who will talk. You have got friends. Don't alienate yourself from your friends. And what I've sort of learned is, be around positive people. Positive people can always help you. But negative people will pull you down.
Yeah.
And they might not know they're negative, but you will know, because you don't really want to be around them because you're bored. And I've sort of learned, when I'm with positive people, I can be positive. I can talk to them. But if I'm in a group where some are positive and some are negative, when the negative people are talking, I'll start to wonder. My eyes will start, and I'll start looking around, because I'm starting to get agitated. And that's what I've learned for myself.
Yes. So once again, if you're listening and you're struggling, do what John's done. Reach out, go and see your GP, say something's not right. It's people say there's a stigma about mental health, and it's like, I see it in society. I see the kind of idiotic things people say, and the views they hold. But for me personally, it's like one of the proudest experiences of my life, way more proud than wearing a green beret, is that I've come through, mental health challenges, and I'm still here, and hopefully a stronger person because of it. So to anyone, again, listening, who's struggling, if it's the proudest thing I've done in my life was getting it all sorted out, then I'd encourage you too. John, it's been absolutely brilliant. Stay on the line, just so I can say a proper goodbye. But thank you so much.
Thank
How
you.
can people get hold of you if they want you to come and public speak for them? You're on LinkedIn, aren't you?
Sorry?
You're on LinkedIn, so I can put that below our video.
Yes,
on YouTube.
yes, yeah. I mean, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm at the minute with Frank. I'm busy looking at basically getting my own site, right?
Yeah.
And I'm getting my own page together. But because I'm not that way inclined, really, I've got friends who are going to help me with that. Also, the Veterans Charity Forward Assist, they're going to help me with stuff like that. And I'm also hopefully looking to do like a suicide awareness course. So it gives me more of an insight for myself, so I can, help other people. But certainly for my story, you can link in, as you said, in your LinkedIn site, and I'm on Facebook.
Yeah. Well, if you give me the links after, I'll put them underneath the video so people can get hold of you.
Right.
And shipmate, once again, just massive. I'm blown away. It's one hell of a story, and congrats on still being here to tell it, mate.
Yeah, well, I'm here.
Good.
Right.
Stay on the line, John. To everybody at home, thank you so much for listening to this just mind-blowing podcast. I hope you've, I don't want to say enjoyed it, but I hope you have enjoyed it and probably been on the roller coaster I've been on for this last 2 hours. Massive thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting the channel. If you can give us a subscribe, there'll be plenty more to come. Thank you. Hello, friend. I hope this finds you well. My name's Chris THRALL. I'm a former Royal Marines Commando, and I fought my way back from chronic trauma and addiction to live, work and travel in 80 countries across all 7 continents, achieving all of my dreams and goals along the way. Now I pass my simple system on to other people, but I can only help you if you like and subscribe. So please do so, because you get one life, and if you live it right, one is enough.